Trish, and welcome to Teacher Therapy. Today we have a very special guest named Patrice, and she's going to tell us why she decided to quit teaching after 17 years. But she's also going to tell us how she ended up overcoming teacher burnout. So I'm so excited to hear your journey today, Patrice. Do you want to start by telling us why did you want to become a teacher?
So becoming a teacher was a childhood dream for me. It was the thing of seeing all these great men and women in my life that I knew. They unlocked the world through education. It was something amazing. These people were respected. They walked with a statue of honor. And I just wanted to be like them. So, that was my goal. I said I wanted to be a person who brings the light and life of education to pass.
Beautiful. So I think a lot of us start with those big dreams and hopes. We want to impact our community. Then we get in the classroom, and sometimes it's not what we expected. So was there anything that was a shock to you once you actually got in the classroom to start teaching?
Where do I start? Okay, so when I first got into the classroom, my first teaching assignment was in the middle of the school year. It actually happened right after getting back from the holidays. I was the fifth teacher in the classroom. I ended up teaching in the middle of Liberty City. I ended up being there. They had ran, as my students would say, they had ran off 4 other people. And the principal came to me, and I'll forget this. I'll never forget it. She goes, listen, I know you're a para, but I know you've graduated school and this would be a great opportunity for you. So I said, yeah, sure, right? Bright-eyed, bushy tail. This is brand new out of college. You got, your first car, you got to pay bills and all this good stuff. And so I say yes. And when I get into this classroom, I realize this is an alternative education class with a common lab. Now, for those who don't remember this, I'm aging myself a little bit. These are your kids who they were not necessarily going to be placed in a alternative education center, but they were like right there at the step of it. And then also, in this particular class, you had to teach children trades. And I know it's been a little while. We don't do that anymore, but you had to teach them a trade. So it could have been anything as far as teaching plumbing, setting up electrical, hair assignments, nails. So you got to have a chance to kind of teach them different skills and things at that point. I will never forget when I met the teacher who left out. I will never forget. I thought it was hilarious. I ended up realizing I knew this young man years later from his brother, who was another teacher that I worked with in the past. At this point, I remember I first came in and he says, oh, they got a newbie, huh? Good luck. And he picked up his box and he left. And I was like, what? I was so shook by this. But I took it and I felt like this was going to be my way to make a difference, to make a change. So I took it on head on. Little did I know what I would experience within that first 6 months of teaching. That first 6 months, I went from being a newbie to what I call being a veteran on the front line. I literally had a child who threatened to kill his own mother by setting her on fire at night. He would do that every night. She was to the point she was not sleeping and she was scared to keep anything in the home over a plastic knife. I had a student whose mother was more in love with the man than her children, and the man had taken the children and her hostage, and she ended up being the one who was able to escape and get the family help because he was on the rest of the family by gunpoint. I had a student who had just lost his mother to a traumatic car accident and literally stopped talking and would go home and destroy his home every night. And then I had my first real experience of learning about juvenile justice, where I had a car theft ring in my classroom that these young men were going and carjacking people and stealing cars and taking them to the local people at the chop shop. That's when I discovered that yes, it does happen early. It does start early. What I wish somebody would have told me in those first couple of months was, yes, you go in bright-eyed, bushy-tail, but also take care of yourself, because for every trauma that's walking in that door, you as the teacher are taking that in as well. And I wasn't prepared for it. I don't think that they did enough. Me personally, I don't think any school college degree at that point was giving enough information on how do you handle that. They weren't talking about, being prepared in the area of psychology along with education. Now people are talking about it and they talk about how important it is. But back then, that was a joke. The children got it, just go in, tell them sit down, and they're going to do it. Let's all be honest, everybody. Theory and practice, 2 different ball games, right? We all have read these great books that people talk about with all the theories, but in practice, it is nothing like that. And the books that they write these theories on are not the kids that we're dealing with or we have dealt with in the past. Let's really be honest. The kids we have today would not fit with Dr. Wong's theory.
Mhm.
Let's just really be honest. When you think about these different things, and even with Dr. Spock's theories and all these other ones, they wouldn't fit with the children that you're raising today.
Definitely. That was a beautiful summary. So I'm curious, you came in and it was difficult because I've talked to a lot of teachers that have been teaching 10 or 15 years, and they felt like the kids were okay when they started, but got progressively worse. But you started out in a difficult context. Have you seen a change in students over these years of, like, what did you say, 17 years, right?
17. So my first class kind of was the introduction to what life was going to be like. In that first class, that's where I discovered every child had an IEP. I thought that was normal. For me, I didn't see a change in teaching for me until year 15. This is when I actually got a different set of kids. I had been told over years and years, you're too good to let out of this particular demographic of kids. You know, you handle those kids very well. To the point I even had the nickname the warden, because I would get the tougher kids and, you know, where they were low in reading and had all these behavior issues. By the time they left me, their reading scores were up, math scores were up. They knew how to behave in a setting according to, you know, what the principal in the school would want. And it didn't seem as if like, oh my gosh, we can't let her out. I remember when I first got my degree in mental health and counseling, I went to go in and apply for a counseling position at the school where I worked. And the lady told me, she laughed at me and said, why would I let you out of a classroom? Why? You're too good. You handle all the problems that the current counselor can't handle. And I was like, oh, so this is what we're doing in the streets now. So since she can't handle it, I have no choice. So for me, the change was year 15, and that's when I got kids that didn't have IEPs, but they had other issues going on. And because they were not a labeled child or a diagnosed child at that time, it was still a problem because nobody wanted to actually help those kids.
So what kind of classroom management strategies did you see work? Because at least in modern teaching, it's all about no negative consequences, not being punitive, you know, kind of phrasing everything positively without saying no. There's just a lot of crazy stuff out there. So did you see that enter into education at any point, or did you have free reign to deal with the students however you saw fit?
So in my first classroom, I was very blessed. I had a para at the time. I know at certain states and certain schools, they phased that out later. But me and her had a tag team message. So our thing was when we worked together, if I saw something really great, and I'm just going to use a name. So if I saw that James Brown did really great in this, I would really hype this up. And if she saw there were some pieces that need to be corrected, then she would kind of do what she called soft correction. Now, her soft correction is not being soft. She would say, now listen, I know you could do more than this. She was stern, but loving. But she also gave a chance to kind of hooray what was going on. Here's what I feel is our biggest issue right now. We've gotten to the point we don't want people to correct. You have to realize true love doesn't sugarcoat. True love comes with correction. And sometimes when you're in that classroom, you can have a student who deserves to be corrected, because we've met a few. We all have, right? And you also have that F student who needs to hear, you know what? You didn't get a 15 this time, but you at least made it to 50. I'm proud of you for at least getting to that part. Now let's get you up to a little bit further, right? So that's the big piece. But let's go back to those classroom management things. One, I was very different in my classroom management. I was very in their face, and I would tell them, so you think this is going to help you in life? Let's work it out. Let's talk about it. Now, would I talk to everybody? No. And some days my talking would not be all flowery and lovely either. Let me say that, because I was very much in your face and I talked a lot through my teeth, a lot. But I wanted them to understand that this world is not going to give them everything they want by their hand. The world is not going to be kind to you for everything. And the world was not going to stop and say, oh, poo-poo you. No, that's not the world we live in. And I don't care how many times we give children participation trophies and shirts and all this good stuff. The real world doesn't work in that manner. Some things that I did. So I used to have like my little, what I call Brantley bucks. At that point, if they did really great, I would say, okay, you'd earned a Brantley buck. But I also would include, if you saw a classmate that was doing something amazing, give them a Brantley buck. And that got them to start getting each other in line, that I didn't have to do so much of the craziness. I would say, wow, so-and-so, I see so-and-so gave you a Brantley buck this week. Talk to me about it. How did that work for you? And I would let them share about it. This is end of the day, lined up, walking out the door. This is not wasting another time for the stuff, right? But I would say, hey, how did you feel about this? And this will have some of them say, you know what, that was a little bit different. Because this time it wasn't just my teacher seeing me do well. My classmate was also saying, hey, I see something different in you. I see something improving in you. Another thing that I did before it became fashionable, we would kind of have my morning set up as we're doing problems on the board, because that was my big thing. I was big on, and I'm aging myself real good for those who know about transparencies and chalkboards, right? I would put up my problems, but my third question would always be something about feelings. And I would kind of do a little thing about how are you feeling today. And at that point, it would be either a happy face, a sad face, or at that point, it was a side thumb. And we would kind of talk about it. Is there some things that we need to kind of chat about? Now, did I stay on this long? Did I make this a whole group session like we in therapy? No, but I give you a little couple of seconds. Let's talk about it. If it needed to be something deeper, and if I had time in that day in between, we'll pull it to the side and talk about it. So there are little different things you could do. I also had a thing with certain of my parents because I had some very interesting parents. For some of my interesting parents, if I know that they didn't get the concept, I would take time and say, hey, listen, can you come in on this day? And some days it did take a little bit more time after school. I would say, okay, if you can come in on this date, let's go over this so you can get it so you can help your child at home. Now, does that work for everybody? But at least gave them something. And if they were not able to come in, I would actually give them a step-by-step little guide that I would do for them. And honestly, to be told, I did those in a way and I kept a copy of them. So when the next set of parents came in, because it was always one from the next group, let me just give you this sheet so you can know how to do it.
That's awesome. Wow. So by the time you got to the point of quitting, what were some of the changes you saw in the students that made you think, I don't know if I can keep doing this in this way?
So right till I got to the point of quitting, it wasn't necessarily the students, it was administration.
Oh,
My admin was so cotton candy and laid back that it was like, well, the kids are resilient. So all this stuff was going on around these kids and it seemed to be no care. So I'll give an example. I had a young man who one day came in and he had several things happening and going on, and he would be attending to something that's not there or talking to someone or something that was not there. And I would say, this is not safe for other people. This is not safe for the other children, because some days he could be talking to whatever this was he thought he saw, and it would be great and he would be laughing and joking. Other days he's getting up highly upset and he's trying to throw chairs. And as y'all can see, I'm a fat chick. I'm not thin by no means. So I don't want to have to be running across the room trying to grab a chair. And I'm saying to my admin, I'm concerned. Don't you all see this? I'm sending this to the council. They're sending him back with lollipops, or here's a hug, or, oh, he just needs a little snack. You should keep a snack drawer in your room. Listen, again, fat chick, fat and fabulous, okay? Fit and fabulous, whatever you want to call it, right? Kept snack drawers. But if that's not the issue wasn't hunger. The issue was something else that needed to be dealt with. And if they kept overlooking it, how could I get the help that he needed for? The other part of that is when we talk about this with administration needs to understand that every kid is not going to be the same. If I take one child and say, okay, I'm going to use the name, Jane Fonda, listen, I need you to remove them from the computer. That may be a meltdown for one child, but for somebody else, they don't care less about their computer. They have to be able to understand it's different for every child. And then they have to be willing to support your teachers in that room. The teacher is the final authority in that room. It's not the principal. It's not the parent coming up here and being extra and going in here, and I'm going to use this here, and acting like a Karen or Karen for the dudes. And then you think it's okay to come in and override. It doesn't work that way. I remember when I had a principal who got upset because I told this one child he could not go on a field trip. This child did no work all year. He did no work. He was very rude to everyone, came in, cussed the principal clean out. The parent came in. I talked to the parent and said, ma'am, there's no way possible I could take this child with us on a field trip in the place. It has to be. Do you know the principal backed down and sent the child with a form to go?
Wow.
So where does this child learn that his actions has consequences? And what does that say to me as the educator to say, are you going to support me? What are you going to do?
Absolutely.
All we ask as an educator is for support. And I still say as an educator because I'm still in it helping educate.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that that's what's so hard, because I think that there's two sets of problems that teachers face. One is even in I'll call it the olden days, when teachers had more freedom to actually manage the classroom. Some people just struggled with that period. But then there's really good classroom managers like you, but in today's climate, they're standing over you telling you can't do anything that works. They're like, oh, at least I experienced this. They would say, like, if I tried to give any consequence, they'd say I was being too negative, that I wasn't being positive enough, that, just all of these crazy things like, oh, there can't be any kind of consequences. The kid can never feel embarrassed about their behavior, and just all of these things that, don't work. And so I think as soon as the students figure out there's not a whole lot that the teacher can do, then the behaviors get out of control.
They get worse. Here's the thing people don't understand. And I think I truly believe for every administrator that sits in an office or on a desk, they need to come back. They need to take a year. Once you get your little title and you up there, great job, we're proud of you. I think they should stick them back in there for a year and let them see what the current climate is, so they can see and understand what we're saying on this part does not support and it doesn't line up. And I really think if we get to that point where administrators were more in the rooms and not just passing by, running by, it will make a difference. Not being in the room watching and guarding over me. I don't need you doing that. I need you to be in there and putting your hands to the plow and pulling that disruptive student and actually working with them, not just saying sit in the corner, not just saying here's a lollipop. We'll get you to make up work for this. No, make them do what they're supposed to do. You're dealing with, like you said, the classroom management. One, if I'm being told what I'm doing is too harsh, we're not going to get anywhere. The world is not cotton candying anything down. When's the last time you went to get a home loan? They didn't stop and say, because you showed up, we're so proud of you. This was great. They looked at you and said, this is your score. This is your credit score. This is how much you make. Either you were approved or you were not. We've got to stop lying to these children and telling them the world will bow to their every demand. It doesn't work. That's the part when it comes to behavior management, but it also comes to the part of your support team. That is your admin and other teachers. And I get it, because I have been there. I have been the teacher when people have said, hey, so-and-so, because this is my thing. Hey, Brantley, I'm not going to make it in. Can you pull my class? We've done that. But we've also got to remember that for those teachers who covered you, take the time to give them the break that they need too.
Definitely.
It's only right.
So I'm kind of curious, what were you feeling like when you decided to quit? And was there a certain tipping point where you decided, I cannot do this another day? How did that work? What was the thought process?
The day I left, May 12th, literally, I remember that day so clear because it got to be to the point I was like, this is too much. I was here this day. I had first grade and I had these same children who had been here and everybody thought it was so cute. Oh, it's okay. They're just acting this way. And I remember this day because I had a young boy who was very, very smart, very, very smart. He was attending to other things going on. I had a whole group of people who were here. And this particular day, he decided he wanted to throw a garbage can. I was like, nope, we're not doing this. And I caught it. And I said, okay. And we put it down. And I said, now listen, this is what we're not going to do today. I said, I know you have a moment, but we're not doing this today. I said, if you need to, you got to go. I said, because I can't do this. Send him to the office. They sent him back and said, he is your job. You need to handle this. Okay. Yeah. I see you. I one up you on that. Okay. I said, I tell you what. I said, either y'all are going to come get this student and deal with this, or I'm going to leave. Now, usually I'm very calm, cool, collected. I never leave. I'm going to be here. As my old principal made the statement, you are our steady Eddie. I don't expect you to ever leave. You're going to be here when the building goes down. Mm-hmm. Her exact statement. This particular day, I said, listen, I can't keep doing this. I say, you all are going to have to do something with this. His behaviors have gotten progressively worse. I have been working with the parent because this is what everybody wanted. He's on a bid plan, been working with the parent. We're in rotation. I'm no longer getting blocked with phone calls now. Parent is answering. They're buying in. We're doing all of this. Behavior didn't stop. I'm saying, okay, I need you as an administrator to step up. You still didn't. Now we're here. This day comes and it's complete craziness because I'm now battling with you as the administrator, this child who is seeing clearly they have won and they're not doing this. Listen, look, she can't leave us. She can't make us go out. So they're seeing it. So they're plotting. I got a whole room here plotting and seeing it, ready to go. Because now I can't say anything. So I said, okay, you know what? It's lunchtime, children. I'm so happy. It's lunchtime. Let us get ourselves prepared. Let's go. We're heading to lunch. I politely packed them all up. As I was packing them up for lunch, I said, make sure you got all your stuff now. Everything on point. I packed them up. I packed myself right along with them. And as I dropped them off the lunch, I hit it straight out that front door. And I told them, y'all have it. Have a great day. I don't know what y'all gonna do. Y'all make it work.
Wow.
And when I left, I called my best friend. I said, listen, this is something I have never done before. I said, but I have left this simple job today. I said, I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I can't not do this today. And we went to a restaurant. I shall not name their name because they're not paying me any money. And we had nachos and adult beverages. And at this moment, we went out and he says to me, clear as day, you've left now. What's next? And I said, you know what? I didn't think about it, but something has to change and I can't go back like this. And when I left, we sat at that table and we sat down and really discussed what does your next look like. And I knew from that point on, I did not want another educator to feel like that. I didn't want another person to feel like I don't need to go back. I didn't want another person to feel like I was burned out, overwhelmed, just to the point, felt that no one cared. At least my administration, I felt like they didn't care. I knew there were other teachers who did, but I just felt like there was no other way. And I said, I didn't want another teacher to feel that way. That was May 12th. May 13th. May 13th, I go back here because I'm just like, okay, what do? You done left these people job. I go back to my administration. When I walked in the door, first words, oh, We thought you had snapped. Oh, you did, huh? I said, oh, you did. Yes, we were concerned. We thought you were going to have to put you away. I said, well, I tell you what. I said, you don't have to worry about that. Since you felt that's where I needed to be, don't worry. We're going to do something a little different. Immediately after that conversation, I went and got my paperwork and I took a sabbatical. I had gotten to the point where I had saved up enough money that I could take care of myself for that year. I took that year and I left. Within that year, I went to move into a totally different field, which is dealing with mental health, is what I do now. And I worked with people in the area of mental health. Within that year, I met some dynamic people, but I met a whole lot of teachers who were saying, I need help. What do I do? And in that transition, it made me say, you've got to be a person who brings a change. You've got to do something for someone else because you don't want anyone else to feel like that. And that's what started this adventure that I'm in now.
Awesome. So was there any part of you that thought that you were going to go back the next day and work again, or had you already decided you were done for the rest of the school year?
In the moment, in anger, I said I was done. I was done. It was it. When I got home and I saw the bill sitting on my table, that made me go, wait a minute, sis, you need to let's think this one out a little bit more. But I knew that night, once I sat down and me and my best friend really kind of sat down and had this thing of, you need a plan. You can't just go out here looking just willy-nilly. You need a plan. We came up with a plan. And I'm happy that I was at that point in life where I was able to save up. I couldn't imagine trying to do that now with the way inflation and everything is, but literally taking the time and saving up and saying, you know what, I'm going to bet it all on me and I'm stepping out. The biggest thing I think for me was the guilt, not even the plan. The biggest piece for me was the guilt of I left what I love. And it was a thing of, because I went back to my old neighborhood. I literally went to the elementary school where I was a student. And my whole thing was, I want to see these students become these amazing, productive people that I know they can become. And so I had to fight with my own self on the guilt of leaving and saying, you know what, let them do what they're going to do. And once I got past the guilt and said, okay, it's time to put your plan in action. It's time to move. I didn't look back.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the guilt part. I think that's the hardest thing. Both guilt for leaving and then fear of the future, I think, are two of the hardest things for teachers that are considering leaving. So let's go back to the personal impact that you kind of went through whenever you were struggling in the classroom. What were some of the personal effects that being in a toxic classroom had on you?
Some of my personal effects of this toxic classroom. In the midst of this, so for me, one of the big things was I would eat my feelings. So I literally went from what I like to lovingly call 337 and climbing. And for those who women, let me give you a better visual. I went from a perfect size 16 to a size 26. I had ended up ripping my Achilles tendon because the weight was crushing my body. I ended up being one of the most bitter people I knew. And I know I can be bitter. Okay, yo, I can get there. Shady Grady and all, right? But I lost those things that were my joy for me in that toxic place. I became very cynical. I became that teacher that was like, oh, you got something to say? Child, they don't know nothing. Because they didn't, right? And I stood on it. But I also realized in this, I wasn't taking care of me. So I became that teacher that was ballooning here. Mentally here, I'm frustrated. I don't want to deal with people. I'm cynical. I'm negative. I didn't want to deal with anyone, right? And in the midst of this, I'm trying to figure out, how do I go from this? When I finally took hold and dealt with it, and let's just really be honest, there was some times where I had a little sipping too, right? In the midst of this, I was doing all these things that I thought were going to be healthy to cope, but destroying myself in the same space. So I encourage people, when you see yourself in these toxic environments, you got to start manning for you. You know, I know everybody always talks about team first, but you got to look at what's going to help me. Because let me be very honest, Jack wasn't helping me. He was making it worse. Sarah Lee, as much as I love her pound cake now, she got some good pound cake. But she was not helping me. I had got to the point I had the balloon so bad and so big that I was literally killing myself slowly, slice by slice. So it's knowing for yourself, what is it about this environment? What am I allowing and what needs to be removed? And one of the first things, and I will never forget this, and this is something I tell people, when you are off the clock, be off. I remember there was this joke that Bernie Mac would say, that he would say, oh, when I'm on break, I break. I learned how to break, because I was that person, oh my goodness, I need to do this. I need to make sure I have that. Use your planning time. Take care of you. That planning time is for you. And I do know that the new phase is now people are saying, well, if you cover a class on your planning time, if you're going to cover that class, you better figure out how to help them, make them kids help you get something done, so that you don't be sitting, you're not here burning yourself out, trying to be the best for everybody else and giving yourself only what's left. So you want to have those tools for yourself and look at what are the tools that you have already that help you thrive and be successful. And then what are the things in that environment that's making you feel dull and drug out? And if it's too much on your plate, be honest with yourself. I think a lot of people assume when you take on the title of teacher that you have to do all these things. And I've worked on some very interesting administrations that it was this, well, if you don't do this, and it was always a threat or some type of retaliation. But if it didn't get done, and what? Let's just really be honest. The world wasn't going to end. The sun came out the next day. I'll get to it when I get to it. I mean, let's just really be honest. You have to get to it when you get to it. We already have so much on the plate that you're overwhelming people and you're making people honestly feel like they're not enough. They're not doing enough. And this is how you have all these teachers leaving out in droves because somebody else is telling them without necessarily saying the words, and sometimes really saying the words, you're not enough. You're not doing enough. And let's really be honest. Anybody who has ever stepped a foot in the classroom, you know that you are giving it 150 every day, every moment. And when you get home, you're exhausted, you're burned out. So the goal is to take that energy and put it on you. So
Definitely.
hopefully I answered that.
Yes, you sure did. So overall, would you say that you found your teaching career to be joyful and fulfilling, or was there a certain point where it was kind of just like misery every day?
At the beginning, it was joyful and fulfilling. Even with the craziness that I talked to y'all about with that first class, I still found joy in it because at the end, there were pieces in that class and that group that let me know, okay, you can do this. But at the end, it became, it's Monday again, and it became this thing of, okay, do I want to do this? It got to the point where Sunday night became, let's look on Indeed. Let's really be honest. Sunday night became either employment seek night or it became, let me gear myself up to do this. And that's what a lot of people are struggling through. It's the thing of, let me get to that point where I'm not feeling burnt out. If it would have stayed the same and people would have kept the correct discipline in place. And I'm not saying being abusive, but a discipline that supported your educators, it could have been a life of fulfillment. I would have gladly done the 30. But it got to the point that it only became focused on don't suspend, don't do in-house. They got to stay in your room. You got to do all of this, and you had to do all of this and do all of this, that it became overwhelming. I can imagine, and my heart goes out truly for any of the teachers that came after the pandemic, because I can imagine, I know what I experienced before it. And if they were throwing all this pressure and all of this stuff before then, I can just imagine what they're dealing with now. I mean, it has to just be an endless stream of do. And I know there have been some changes where people have said, well, they don't have to do old school lesson plans. And I've had a few people say, well, we still do old school lesson plans. And I've had some who say, well, no, we just pull ours offline, whatever floats your boat, right? But it's still that there's other parts that's pressure to you. Whether you have the state walking in and out of your classroom, whether you have mandates from the state of what you can and cannot teach. That's enough stress by itself. Then on top of somebody saying, here's X amount of children, and we're not going to support you with those children.
Definitely. So I'm kind of curious, where do you think education has gone wrong, either in just philosophies or practices over this span of time that you've been in the classroom?
Education has got it wrong when it came to taking away the teacher's voice and authority. We've gotten so heavy on just parents' authority and children's authority and everybody else's rights and entitlement that we completely left the teacher out of the equation. You have children who feel so emboldened to come and be in a teacher's space so close and spit on them, hit on them, kick on them, and worse. And it's like, oh, you're supposed to take it because you wear that title. I don't have to take any of that. And then the sad part about it is when teachers do defend themselves, then the whole narrative is changed. This teacher is so abusive. This teacher is so this and so that. Instead of saying, well, where was the support? How did this teacher get to this point? Where were the steps that admin or other people could have helped and take to help this teacher not get to this point?
Definitely.
So we got to be able to look at all sides of the puzzle with that. We expect teachers to be everything but the person who says push. It's to the place now where for teachers, I really believe if some people could just say, hey, this is it. This is the one I just popped out. You raise it. The first teacher for every student starts at home. It's not the teacher's job to do it all. You are there to, the teacher is there to supplement what you do at home, but also enhance and provide more, not to be the only person.
Definitely. And yeah, I was just about to ask you what your experience with parents were over, the last decade and a half. So did you find parents to be supportive in the beginning and less so as time went on? Or was there always kind of a struggle with, working with parents?
So here's what I found interesting. When I worked in schools that were not as well funded, I had more parent participation. Now, that participation sometimes was really, really great. Sometimes it was not. For those when it was really, really great, those were those parents who kind of went that extra mile, which, we all love those who go the extra mile, right? But you also have those parents that feel like, well, you took this job, you're supposed to do this, and I'm not supposed to do any of this. Here's what they don't realize. This is your final product. I'm just a part of the path. That's your final product that's either going to be sitting on your couch and making you miserable or helping you smile and be excited. They got to put in their part. I find that when I had parents that were more cooperative, it made life a lot easier. When I had parents who had an issue with every little thing that I did, then that's when the problem started, because it became, well, my mama said, and I'm fine that your mama said that. I'm happy she said that. But now what part is mommy going to help and play into to help you?
Definitely. So I would love to hear more about what you dealt with in terms of student behavior, defiance, because it seems like teachers everywhere are talking about an uptick in absolutely out of control behavior from the really little kids all the way through high school. So what was your experience with that?
So in my beginning time, there was behavior issues, which I spoke about before, right? But it also went a little deeper as you got younger, where before you expected when you worked in 4th and 5th grade that, okay, there's going to be some issues. They're getting a little older now. They're going to try to test authority. But when you got to your younger grades, because people were looking, and because, let's really be honest, younger children look up to the older children, and so they look and see who they can pull things with, who they can't. But also when you have admin and other people who are saying, well, no, you shouldn't say that to this person, that's harsh. I can talk to a child in a way and let them know I support them, or I can correct them, and it's not harsh. It's how you do it. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. The other piece of that is when you talk about discipline, the pendulum has swung so fast, so quickly, that by the time you get one new thing in, nobody gives it time to really work. I mean, we've had that with curriculums as well as with discipline. You will find something that works really well one year, and the next year, as sure as you walk in, we're changing that. We didn't like how it worked with this grade. It doesn't mean that you don't change the whole school. You change that grade. Because sometimes what may work amazing for your younger kids to help you get to the point when they get to 5th, that it works extremely well, you got to give it time to work and move in with. But we change so much so fast, we don't give it time to work. There are certain curriculums that we've had in education when it came to reading, where we went from really great phonics and building words and sounding out to now you're telling kids just memorize the words, so they don't know the basics when it comes time to it, which shows, because when you're looking now after the pandemic, you have kids that are not just 3 years behind, you have kids that range anywhere from 3 to 8 years behind because they didn't know the foundational stuff from the beginning. I think once we get the behavior lined up, and I think once we have the conversation honestly about what are the behaviors on campus and what's happening in all classes, not just the ones people want to walk through and say, let's show Miss So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so because they have this great class. When they really walk in every class and say, how can we support from SPED on around, but each teacher, and find out what are their unique concerns will make a difference.
So I'm curious, did you have a lot of students that would talk back to you, that would yell at you, that would fight with each other? What kind of behaviors were you seeing?
So first of all, talking back was not going to be the word. We're not doing that. I have had a couple who have tried things. Like I said, I've had a little boy who tried to throw the garbage can and thought that they were going to make it happen, and I had better hands at that point. Along with that, I've had kids who, with anger and not knowing how to deal with their emotions. And this is why I feel it's very important to have those mental health conversations in the classroom, not knowing how to express when they're feeling anger or grief or sadness, because that shows up as well. People always think, behavior issues is just they're bad. No, it could be, I may have lost a grandparent. I don't know how to deal with it. It could be, I saw my mother and my father fighting last night. I don't know what to do. I wanted to protect my mother, but I don't know how to protect her from my father. So those are a couple of things we need to have the conversations around. Along with that is the behaviors have gotten progressively worse because everything has now become so desensitized. And because we're a very heavy internet friendly society with social media, realize that most of the major trends that have come through has swept nationwide because they watched somebody do it on one campus somewhere else and brought it over to theirs. We have to be very cognizant of what we're saying is okay global wise. I'm all for you, helping, but when you tear up needed resources and the school doesn't get that money back, because I could go to a school and tear up something over here and they replace it literally the same day. But if I do that in another school and they don't have the funds, it doesn't get replaced until the next year. So we have to be very careful about that and how we deal with that. And that's not on the teacher's job to do that. That is admin to stop and say, we need to figure out how to get that fixed, how we get these kids to realize and buy in on what they need to do. And can I add this? Discipline starts at home.
Yeah.
That starts at home. If I'm able to get away with everything at the house, what do you think I'm gonna do when I get in the street? I'm gonna think it's the same way.
100%. That's the part that concerns me so much. And a lot of times I'll have people ask me like why I don't give more solutions, but I'm kind of getting to the point with the way things are in society. I'm wondering if there's anything schools can fully do at this point. Because when you have parents that are letting the kids do whatever they want and won't give consequences at home, and then the parents are arguing with the school whenever the school tries to give a consequence, and then schools basically are afraid of lawsuits, it seems like as a society, it's getting to the point where I cannot see a trajectory where things get any better because of the cultural problems. At least in America, I can't speak for the rest of the world. And just like you said, the way that they're seeing so much violence, so much disrespect on social media, it just seems like it's getting worse and worse. And I'm not sure if there's anything that schools can do at this point with the way the world is.
So I feel there's a couple pieces to this. If we held parents accountable, I think a lot of things would change. There was a case where the young man went into the school threatening to harm a teacher. I think it was in Minnesota. And he did shoot someone. They put the parents on trial with him. Total difference in how they handled it. I think when we start handling and really holding, not handling, but holding parents accountable for some of these behaviors, it will change how things happen. Because if you had to sit there with that child is looking at potentially looking at life for killing someone else's child, you wouldn't be so quick to gift them that gun. And I'm not saying that's every kid that's being gifted that, but you would think about it and be a little bit more, proactive in how you deal with that. I was talking with my mom this morning. I thought it was very interesting. She talked about this curriculum that she grew up with called Everyday Values. And she talked about how it was a part of the day to talk about being a respectful citizen, having these conversations. And it wasn't being faith-based to non-faith-based, but it was really just talking about what it meant to be a citizen of the world in that classroom. And really, like we talked about, having kids buy in to see each other in that way. We've gotten in such a space now where it's cool to tear each other down instead of lifting each other up.
And I'm just kind of curious, in your own personal life, what was the journey like for you coming out of burnout? About how long did it take you before you felt like you were happy and well again? And what were some of the specific practices that you put into your life to help you after you decided to leave teaching?
So one of the first things I did, I went and I got a counselor. I really needed to talk about the things that were going on, things I had seen in the school system that, for those in the system, you all know how this goes. It's like the mob. You're in and, sometimes it's hell to get out, right? I had to really go and talk to someone who really understood me. And they had the conversation. And it wasn't just, well, oh, that's just a job. No, it was somebody who actually heard and listened to me and had compassion about what I had experienced, who actually walked me through the process. That was one part. It took me literally leaving out. I took a complete summer to 6 months. I took about 3 to 6 months really to getting together with myself and really working a plan for myself and being better and healed so that when I went into the next career, I wasn't still burnt out. I wasn't taking that past trauma from that classroom, or as I like to call it, taking my teacher PTSD with me to another field. Because we truly do have that. I know people don't say that, but teaching, if you're in the wrong environment and dealing with the wrong type of things over and over again, that is teacher PTSD. And instead of taking that with me to somewhere else, some of the things that I did, the first thing I had to do was really stop blaming myself, because I kept hearing it was you didn't do enough. You didn't give enough. You should have did this. I kept pushing and saying, oh my gosh, I didn't do enough. Oh my God, if I would have stayed later, if I would have tutored more, if I would have did this, it wasn't on me. I wasn't the only part of the equation. It was a group equation. It was literally me, the parents, admin, and the students in the middle. Every part had to be fully functional. It just wasn't me to do it all on its own. I had to stop self-blaming. 3, I had to really look at my life as a whole. Where did I allow myself to get off balance? Because literally, we think if we're doing amazing in one area, most times, some on the other side is kind of sliding off, right? So I had to learn to really get myself in a space of balance. And I'm not saying that everybody has to have work-life balance, but I'm saying find the balance that fits for you. So I might be killing it On Sunday with my family, I'm doing amazing. But on Monday, I got to find a way to have that time of connecting with them. It may not be as long as I had on Sunday, but something to connect with them. Some of the techniques that I used. One, I cleared out my pantry. I made it purposeful to clear out the pantry of getting rid of my sugary snacks. I'm not saying I got rid of all my cookies, but I cut back how many cookies I would have, because that was one. And looking at increasing getting out and walking more, doing those things that gave me my cup of joy, not putting off those things for myself. And another thing, what I did? I ate the cake. So many times we stop and I gotta deprive myself. I can't do this, I can't do that. No, take your personal days. Take that vacation time, take it off. The thing that really spearheaded me into the part with taking the personal days was that I had a coworker who dropped dead in the faculty meeting behind the stress and all the stuff going on at the job. So for me, that was a life lesson of, you know what? You don't, them personal days, they're there for a reason. Ooh, I feel a sniffle. Take that day off. I learned. Because I was that person, as the woman said before, I was steady Eddie. I would never take off because I was so worried. Oh my God, the kids, what's going to happen here? And take your days off. Take that time off. Take care of your mental health. I know there's this big push to take care of the children's mental health, and they're allowing, in some states are even allowing them to have mental health days where they don't even mark it against the child and they don't have a concern with the truancy piece. But you take your days, and not to tell nobody how to take their days, but if your mental health day take you to your therapist and into a happy hour, that's your business. But take that time for you. I had to learn that piece. That was a part of that. The other part of that was being honest with myself. Where did I get off task? And little pieces like that. So, as I talk about it and as we get into these workshops, I give people real life example and things they can do. I believe in, my theory is snack size changes. We want to make the big change immediately, right? And that was my fault. Nothing happened until I made this big drastic change at the beginning. But if I'd have been doing little stuff along the way, I could have prevented those pieces of burnout for me. So hopefully in the midst of this will help others. And like I said, y'all jump in the chat. If it's something that you want to ask some questions about and you want to know, reach out. Let's get together. Let's have these conversations, because I don't want other people to experience what I felt. I don't want people to get to the point that you were in a cast. I literally was in a cast for a year because of the weight crushing my body, because I was so frustrated and doing everything else for everybody else and not taking care of myself.
What are some factors that you think a teacher should consider if she or he was in the place that you were in to help them to decide either to stick out that year versus just leaving mid-year?
So some of the things I would definitely look at is, how is your life set up? And when I talk about how is your life set up, are you the person in the house that's providing insurance? If you are, start looking for alternatives. There are plenty other alternatives. And I'm going to be honest with you, my major alternative for me is I pay for all my healthcare stuff via cash. Every doctor that I go to gives a better cash discount than dealing with insurance. So that was my one. I started looking for alternatives in that. The other part was, how was my life set up in the area of what can you necessarily cut back and don't need so that you can live a life of freedom, that you don't have to feel that way and deal with those things that are unnecessary for you. The other part was, am I too far in this adventure to go and do something else? I had been told for years, don't give up that good county job. That good county job is going to keep you, do your time and get your gold watch and go. But here's what people didn't say. While you're on that good county job, your spirit is dying. Your dream is being truly deflated and chopped up into bits, and you're not living the life you're supposed to live. And in the midst of this, I'm going, what do I do? And I'm happy I took that step out. The fear, once I stepped out and I actually started saying, we're going to do this and I'm going to move forward, fear became a quiet voice, because fear does have a voice. Fear is loud. Fear is loud and it talks crazy, right? But when you confront it and say, I'm going to keep going, I don't care what you say, it gets quieter and quieter because it no longer has any hold on you. So I would definitely tell anybody who was thinking about it, listen, look at how your life is set up. Get with somebody. And for me, a big thing I really stress now is idea sessions. Get with somebody. I offer them, right? Have that idea session and let's talk about, what does it look like for your next? Let's talk about that idea, because there are so many teachers that I know who have amazing businesses in them, but they haven't birthed them yet. They haven't talked about what it looks like. I know some amazing teachers who are awesome hairstylists. They may not want to leave the classroom, but you can set up your business and have that as something viable for you for your next. So you want to have those moments. You want to sit down and look at what that looks like for you.
Definitely. So I'm kind of curious. Let's say that there's a teacher that is in a similar situation as you were in, but they don't have any savings. They know that they can't leave. And let's say that they're looking at anywhere from 1 to 3 more years in a situation like you were in. What kind of advice and help would you have for them?
I would tell anybody, don't make an exit without a parachute. I ended up having a parachute, thought it was going to be for something totally different, and it ended up being that parachute. Along with that parachute piece, start seeking resources. There's so many resources that we have in the community, a lot of us don't even know. There are different things you can do. If you want to set up that business, start talking to someone at the SBA. If you want to have an idea session, reach out to somebody who does idea sessions, right? Find those pieces and put them in place so that when you're ready for your exit, you can. And then have that sounding board. Each and every teacher who has insurance has EAP assistance in it. That's employee assistance in it. Go use those free sessions. Talk to a counselor. Talk to somebody in it. They even have wellness coaches in those facilities now, and life coaches. I have used both. Go in there, have the conversation so that when you start having those moments and fear starts talking to you loudly, you know how to go back and address it. You know how to confront it. When you start walking through those cycles of fear, you know how to actually say fear and guilt, you don't hold any place here, and you move forward with it. Now, is everything going to be roses and Pollyanna? No, but at least you know how to handle those tough terrain moments as you move through.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for those tips. And I'm just really inspired to hear your journey to doing what you feel called to do, to helping other people. And so, where can we find you if we want to learn more information about the 3S movement?
Well, you can find me somewhere everywhere. Let me tell you how you get to me, okay? Connect with me at the3smovement.com. That's the website. Please check out all the things that we have because I really want to get out here and let this be known. As well as that, check out any of the workshops that are coming up. We have quite a few teacher workshops coming up on talking about dealing with burnout. We have a recovery group from burnout. We talk about things like that. And we like to get out in the community and meet and greet you because we want you to know that we are people who care. That's one. Also, if you say, listen, Patrice, I'm in the area of Ohio because I'm working in that area as well. You can connect with me at 216-356-1031. Or if you say, hey, I'm in the Florida area, you can connect with me at 813-869-8886. So you want to get a chance to connect. Or if you say, Patrice, I need to email you, honey, I ain't in either one of them. Let me email. Come on and email me at info@3smovement.com.
Awesome. Well, this has been really, really good, Patrice. Thank you so much for coming on. And audience, thank you so much for watching and subscribing. If you have any ideas for future videos, go ahead and let us know. And if you want to interview with me, go ahead and email me at teachertherapytrish@gmail.com. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye.